Good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Maria. It is an exciting day in New Hampshire, and the polls are open all across the state, so it's crunch time. The candidates are out there. It's going to come down to turnout. I think it's also going to come down to kind of where do the independents go? Do they take a Democratic ballot or a Republican ballot? And then there's a whole bunch of undecided. So this is an exciting election to watch. It's also very exciting for New Hampshire voters to be able to participate in it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that a lot of them wait till the last minute, right? We just have no idea of where they may go.
It's much greater than in any election that I can remember in the past, where there are so many people who are either undecided or have said they're willing to change their mind even when they get into the polling booth. So yeah. I don't think any of the polls are going to be accurate. I think the vote will be, and it may surprise people.
Yeah. Andy, it's Dagan McDowell. Who's having the best time connecting on the ground with the New Hampshire voter?
Well, you know, the ground game is very important, and Donald Trump doesn't really have a ground game, but he has a message that resonates with the voters, and it's going to see if that passion shows up. In terms of a ground game where you identify the vote and pull it, Jeb Bush has had a very good ground game for the last 2 weeks. John Kasich has a good ground game. Carly Fiorina has a good ground game. Chris Christie's ground game is not as good as his presence has been. He's been all over the state, so is John Kasich and Jeb Bush, but I haven't seen much of Christie's ground game actually pulling the vote. So it'll be interesting seeing what happens there. The ground game usually makes a difference, although the Secretary of State, Bill Gardner, who knows the state better than anybody, he's the one that protects the first in the nation primary for New Hampshire. He's predicted a record turnout, and that's going to be very difficult for us to judge what the result will be, because it may not be the ground game the way it was in the past. It may just be the momentum.
Yeah. Who do you think is going to come out of tonight stronger, and who do you think is going to come out of tonight weaker and possibly even out of the race?
Well, we don't know what the impact of Marco Rubio in the Saturday night Republican debate will be. That's something that really hasn't polled well to figure out what he stumbled, and I don't know if he's going to be punished for having stumbled. But I would say the governors, Jeb Bush, John Kasich, and Chris Christie, are probably going to do better than people would have thought a week ago collectively. And I don't think Donald Trump is going to get more than 35% of the vote. That means 65% of the vote is going to go against Donald Trump. And then who goes on? And I think who goes on, there will probably be a governor that goes on. I think there may be 4 or 5 people that have the capacity to go on to South Carolina, and that means that they'll hop on planes and get right down there pretty darn quickly. So I think it's going to be a while before the field really thins out to only 2 or 3 candidates. I think it's going to be 4 or 5 for the next little while.
So we won't know then really who's in the lead and who's the nominee till what? April? End of March?
Most people don't realize New Hampshire is not a winner-take-all state.
Right.
All of the states before March 15th are a proportional allocation of delegates. So the winner here will probably get 9 or 10 delegates. You need 1,236 delegates to win the nomination. So
what about
we're
Michael
a long
Bloomberg?
way from picking.
What about Michael Bloomberg? He says he's eyeing the bid now.
I think he is eyeing the bid. I know people who are close to Michael Bloomberg, and they're talking about it. So I have a feeling that he's starting to map a strategy out to see if it's viable for him to run. That would change the nature of this race. But that would be for the general election, not for the primary election.
Bloomberg was the mayor of New York City. How would he play in the rest of the country?
I think pretty tough. I think it would be tough for him to find a path to real victory without having a brokered Republican convention, a brokered Democratic convention, or, at least a mess in both conventions, and he tries to emerge and somehow coalesce a middle that nobody can identify right now. So I think it's tough for him to find a path to victory. What he might do is open up a path, and this would be something unheard of, where Congress would pick a president.
Wow.
And that would be really strange, and you might end up with a President Paul Ryan.
Well,
that's like a plot from Veep, Andy.
But if the Republicans, the Congress obviously is Republican. If the Republicans pick a president, then they're going to pick
the Republican nominee.
Yeah, they're going to pick the Republican nominee, no?
No, they could pick anybody. They could pick Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House. I'm not predicting that would happen, but if it goes to the Congress, if the Electoral College finds no winner, then each state gets one vote cast by the delegation from that state in the Congress. And they can vote for anybody. So I don't think we'll get there, but it's kind of a fun thing for political scientists and historians to pay attention to.
Well, I mean, he would run as an independent, so, right, Bloomberg? So he would take votes. Do you think he would take more votes from Hillary, or do you think he would take more votes from the GOP?
I tend to think he'd take more votes from Hillary. I don't think she's as strong a candidate as the Democrats had anticipated she would be, and I think some of the people might be attracted to a Michael Bloomberg candidacy more from the Democratic side than the Republican side.
But so it sounds like you're saying he could get votes to win enough states to deny anyone a possibility of getting 270 electoral votes.
Well, I'm not smart enough to make that prediction, but it is theoretically probable that it could happen if there is a strong third-party candidate. And the definition of a strong third-party candidate would be someone like Michael Bloomberg, who is willing to spend a lot of his own money.
Yeah. But is he charismatic? But Andy, is he charismatic enough to really reach out to people who might not otherwise like him? I look at him rather than something for everybody to like. He's got something for everybody to dislike on the left and on the right.
No, I think, Ray, I think that's a pretty accurate description. He is not, a dominant personality the way Donald Trump is.
Right.
And so, but he does have staying power. He is a credible leader. He did a terrific job as mayor of New York City, and that's not an easy responsibility to have. So he does have credibility. But look, I'm for the Republican nominee, and I hope it's Jeb Bush. It's no secret. I think Jeb Bush would be a great president. If he were John Ellis, I'm convinced everybody would be for him. The fact that he's John Ellis Bush means that he carries his dad's and his brother's assets and liabilities. I happen to love the Bush family, so I'm with them anyway. But if he were John Ellis, I'd still be for him.
So you think he found his sea legs? I mean, this last debate, he sort of started fighting back.
I do. I think he's demonstrating, presidential leadership and a backbone and a little spirit. And so I think Jeb has had a good 10 or 15 days. The question is, will that give him momentum to have a solid third-place finish in New Hampshire? Maybe. But I think he's got staying power. I think he'll be there in South Carolina and compete viably there.
All right, Andy, good to talk with you. Thanks so much for your insights. Appreciate it.
Don't forget Franklin Pierce University. We love the politics.
You got it. Franklin Pierce University. Go Franklin Pierce. Thank you, Andy Card.